Men are not weak, they're just poorly conditioned to think that they have to go down with the ship, thinking that asking for help is a weakness, when in fact is the greatest strength you can add. I remember that time where I thought that I had to buy a house and I had to walk the road most traveled, thinking that buying a house would create more stability. I could build a foundation and I could live off this and align to the particularly Australian way of life, and how that will then set me up because I was doing what everybody else was doing. But in fact, choosing that path and the pressure that I had on myself to try and achieve these things became suffocating. It affected my relationship at the time in a negative way. It had further financial complications and implications to just trying to align to this idea. And then furthermore, the pressure of actually just keeping your head above water whilst trying to navigate and survive this dream that has been implemented and proposed onto communities and societies. See, it was the pressure not only that I was carrying, but that so many men carry on the daily, on all aspects and avenues of their experience. But the reality is, it's that same pressure that is the thing that becomes crushing. Because if you don't have access or ability to reach outside of yourself for even just a safe conversation, then this pressure is what compounds, what expands, and what ultimately crushes a person's self-esteem, self-worth, confidence, and all-round ability to actually operate. See, people talk about we've got to be the best version of ourselves, best version of ourselves. But what is the best version? There is no best version. It's fleeting. It's a moment in time. If you reach your best, how is that best sustainable, long term? The reality is it's about the most supportive version of yourself. And once a person becomes the most supportive version of themselves for themselves, then they naturally become the most supportive version for the people around them, their partners, their children, their community, the people that they're showing up for, the reason why they're carrying all this pressure in the first place. Because they're the reason why a man steps into those roles and responsibilities that society has created, that the conditioning of generations has implemented onto an individual. So men, it's important to have that camaraderie. But if you don't have spaces to be able to share the truth of the realities of those pressures, then how does one expect to actually carry that weight their whole entire lives? And how can you possibly carry a weight so big and it not have a projection onto the people around you? See, men's depression shows up in the way of anger, frustration. It becomes its own projection onto the people around them. And that's the thing. I've had it myself. I've had relationships where the partner feels like the enemy, even though they're the ones trying to help you, because they become the enemy because as an individual, you don't know how to help yourself. So then, of course, the closest person to you becomes the target. But the reality is that A, that person doesn't deserve that, and B, it's not their fault that you are carrying the pain that you're carrying. And it's not their fault that they get treated that way because of that pain. See, accountability comes from showing up. It actually means that you put your hand up and you own what is rightfully yours. It means that you actually stand in the sovereignty of saying that I don't feel good and I am going to do something about it. See, that is the strength. That is not a weakness. That is putting your hand up and going, I'm going to be accountable for this. And I'm going to change the way that I see and have a relationship with these feelings so that I can then step into the life I was meant to live, and I can also provide the life that I'm meant to be for the people around me in the way of support, through self-love, through connection, and through positive, sustainable continuing on that path of salvation. That's the strength. It's putting your hand up and saying, I don't feel good, and I'm going to do something about it. That's it. That is where it starts.